Get the last few people in. Okay, it's 2:00. So we will call the village council work session meeting to order. Roll call. Trustee Ager is absent, excused, and we do have trustee Joe Rubel attending via Zoom. Susan on Zoom? Oh, no, yeah,
There is a Susan.
okay.
I don't know if that's.
Is she okay?
No,
Yeah.
she broke her knee.
Oh, Jesus.
So all other trustees are present in person. We have our manager, clerk, and treasurer also in attendance.
I don't know.
Item 2 is approval of the agenda amendments or additions. Any council members have any of those? Hearing none, all in favor of the agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the agenda is set. Brings us to item 3, which is our first public comment. Members of the public will have up to 5 minutes to address the council, and you can raise your hand or unmute yourself, and I will recognize you and you can speak. And it looks like Ruth Butler is her rant, and state your name and address for the record. Please.
My name's Ruth Butler Arntz. I'm at 10604 North Shore Drive. First, thank you, a huge thank you for Uncaged last Saturday, one of the most fun days of the year, and whoever's responsible for that, thank you. I love Northport and I love Uncaged. We had family from out of town. It was great. I'm here because of the 7th Street development proposals, which we thought were settled last March of 24. And I'm real eager to hear the conversation today because I am hoping that the goal of attainable housing goes outside the village. I know you can't do anything about it outside the village, but there are other sites in the area that are probably quite suitable for building, and I'm hoping that you can talk about that. I'm a little dismayed when I looked at the proposal for 7th Street because it talks about the developer and how many houses, like 6, I think, little cottage houses there, but that then the developer will be responsible for developing the park portion of the property, which we've always referred to as wetlands. And that makes me very nervous that a developer would be taking care of trails and park improvements. So I certainly hope that that's something you discuss and dismiss. I also hope you seriously consider, and this was a suggestion that's come up from our conversations with the village manager, that the wetlands area of this property be deeded as restricted. And I understand this is something you could do right away. It doesn't have to depend on anything else, but you see 4-ish acres of wetland there, and you can do a deed restriction for that and only concentrate on the 7th Street frontage property, which is what we had thought where we were last March. So good luck. Let's have a good conversation about it, but I hope you can put us at ease. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yeah, go ahead.
I know you can't answer questions, but.
Name and
Slot 10160 North Shore Drive.
thank you.
I wrote a letter. I hope everybody read it. My position remains the same. I'm referring to 7th Street. I feel, a lot of what Ruth said, I would get behind. I feel this isn't the right place. And I based that on when I came, it was the small village, quaint. The master plan, I'm really confused. I can't tell which direction you guys are heading and what's a priority. Because I read that natural areas are a priority. I know that Jared wants to redo the recreational plan. And when I refer to the recreational plan that just expired, it even talks about expanding areas for recreation and wildlife enjoyment and walking. And so to take a property that we own, and in the recreation plan, it said that those parcels that are owned by the village or quasi-owned would remain recreation. On your own map, the 7th Street piece is part of that map. I know that document got old, but nonetheless, that's the only one out there. So when people move into the area, we plan on certain things and we choose our, to invest in a place based on what's written in your own documents, both the master plan, which I pointed out, the recreation plan. And so I also noticed that I'm trying to figure out, you're doing spot zoning. So spot zoning generally is prohibited. We're talking about a usage zoning, as I understand it. This is currently R2. So I think, and one of my questions is, you have to rezone this to do some of these proposals. And did
I'll
that,
fix your breakfast in just a minute, Eddie.
pardon me, is my 5
No,
minutes?
no, it's somebody on Zoom is unmuted.
So the pilot program, is that what
I
just
see.
allows you to just pick a spot to do these tax incentives for attainable housing? Because that doesn't seem like a very well thought out plan. I just don't think the 7th Street property being environmentally sensitive really meets the need for that based on your own written documents for the area. And then some of your criteria for that pilot program was, do you have to rezone? I was reading that today and I read through your list from top down and I thought your list of these pilot ideas, the 7th Street piece didn't fit. It said, sorry, I normally do a better job. I write my public comments, but I'm just kind of going from the cuff here. Stated criteria, whether the project increases the local workforce. I don't know if we know that or not. Addresses underutilized or obsolete buildings. That's an awesome plan. I mean, these programs that are state supported, grant supported are meant to be for blighted areas. I think that'd be great if we could approach some of those properties somehow. Is it consistent with the master plan? I just pointed out, I don't see a big, heavy consistency. And does it require variances or extend nonconformities? It would. So anyway, I'm confused about what the village priorities are and hope to maintain the character and architecture of the local community and protect the lake shore and the surrounding beauty. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in person
Yes.
or in Zoom? Yeah. Who is that?
Oh, I'm sorry. This is Eric Pote, 712 Ransom Street.
Thank you.
All right. I would like to start my public comment with praise for the Village Council's recent hard work on the housing rubric and push towards attainable housing. The last Village Council meeting with Housing North, John Stimson, was interesting regarding 7th Street and West Street. I wonder if there are any other affordable housing developers interested in Northport other than Housing North. Regarding the 7th Street property, my opinion would be to listen to the neighbors. I think that 2 6-unit structures or even 6 units is too much density for this location and does not fit the surrounding neighborhood. What I do think would fit nicely there on the hardscape is 2 small affordable homes. I wonder if Larry Mobby would have a presentation and idea for this 7th Street property. I'm also for putting protections on the remainder of 7th Street property, ensuring that the future of the forest with 10% wetlands remains untouched. I do not have an opinion on West Street. The language coming from Councilman Harper during the last couple of meetings has been confusing and polarizing. At the workshop meeting on September 4th, he was all for development at 7th Street. Then at the following Village Council meeting on September 18th, he did a 180 and changed course, now against developing the site. This obviously came after he learned that the township is pursuing housing at the recycling center. Before Councilman Harper learned this, he can be heard on September 4th giving pleas to the public to not blame the Village Council or him for the lack of affordable housing, but to again place blame on the township and specifically Barbara Connolly. He voices his extreme frustration with the township, stating that Barbara Connolly and the township are doing absolutely nothing and have their heads in the sand. He again directs the public to send all frustration and inquiries to Barbara Connolly and the township. This is inappropriate, polarizing behavior. During the Village Council meeting on September 18th, Councilman Harper states that now that the township is pursuing affordable housing at the recycling center, that we may no longer have the need for any more affordable housing in Northport, and that in fact the Village Council may not want to get into affordable housing at all. He then tells 7th Street Development opposition through the camera that he hears them and is leaning their way. Among other talk, Harper and Councilwoman Adger repeated the sentiment that they wish they could have just built the affordable housing at Buster Dame, going so far as saying that it has not been used all summer, when in fact Buster Dame is busier than ever. Also claiming that the township and Barbara did not have the backbone to push through all of the black and white Buster Dame signs. We all saw the massive turnout at the school for the first affordable housing meeting when Buster Dame was hot. And then we all saw the recent pitiful turnout at the school for the last affordable housing meeting. This says something. To those of you on the village council who are vocally sore that Buster Dame did not work out, please remember that it was the will of the public and the law of the land. Should the residents of Northport need to protect the park again, they will. Rather than pit yourselves against the township and let Councilman Harper stir things up constantly, why not work with the township on making the recycling center work? It's a great location where high density can be achieved with low to zero public pushback. Why not be kind and attempt to work together instead of against each other? Another site that was talked about was the driving range. President McCann voiced his sentiments to not develop the area, stating it will be needed for upcoming future Northport Public Schools golf teams. Practicing on the main course is not done, he says, because it damages the course. This is simply not true. Very young teams practice short-range games on the course at about 100 yards from the hole using fairway mats. The fairway mats or savers can be purchased on Amazon very cheaply and are used universally. A driving range is a good tool in teaching the game of golf, but it is simply untrue that kids should practice exclusively on the driving range. There is also plenty of course times available currently and down the road to accommodate both course driving and range practice. That being said, I do not think we should develop the driving range at all into affordable housing. It's an asset to the course and to Northport, the same as Buster Dame. Though it does not get a lot of use, I believe it's enough to warrant keeping it. There is a property adjacent to the driving range that could be looked at maybe. In reply to Councilwoman Adger's comment that the public should consider attending workshop meetings because they are much meatier, I would like to say that most people work jobs during the day, including myself, and I have taken myself away from my job so I can quickly make this comment. We cannot attend, and we have to rely on recorded YouTube videos to keep up to date. To wrap up, I would like to again praise the Village Council for all the hard work that you all do. I want to encourage you to move forward in a more unified professional fashion and allow more of yourselves to speak up because it's usually just one or two. Consider working together on the township with the township and not against them for common goals. Thank you all for your time and have a great day.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comments? Yeah, go ahead.
Randy Cuss, 10414 North Shore Drive. I have one legal question before I make my statement. Do we have an opportunity at the end under comment section to ask questions? Or is it strictly just a comment section?
Just strictly comments.
Okay.
You can ask questions that we could address in the council comment,
Okay.
but that would, we
Better to ask questions now, though. Either questions, no questions at this point, just statement. I just wanted
You
to-
can ask questions, it's just we can't answer you.
Okay.
Like, but we could address it during the meeting.
Understood, thank you. First of all, I want to recognize that you as a village council have a lot of responsibilities for the village. There's a lot placed on you, a lot of demands, and I'm sure a lot of different viewpoints. And so I want to recognize that. But I also wanted to point out that perhaps one of the most important responsibilities you have to the citizens of Northport is a fiduciary responsibility to make good decisions on our behalf. It is our tax dollars that pay for salaries, it's our tax dollars that help run the village, it's our tax dollars that help keep things moving. And so we put the trust in you to make good decisions. Hence my concern. I recently had done some investigative work and noticed that the sewer system is currently being reviewed from a capacity standpoint. That study is being done by Jacobs Engineering. It's currently in process. As a matter of fact, I believe they're just finishing that study up. And that was in part to do because of an incident in July of 2024, in which I believe was during the summer months, which was a heavy demand on sewer. We were reaching upper echelons of demand versus capacity. That's my understanding. That was part of the impetus of doing this study. So the first thing that comes to mind for me is that from a fiduciary standpoint, why we would try to make any decisions on anything until, one, we had the results of those tests back. We don't know what the implications are of putting a 40-unit place, even if it's a township but it's hooked up to our sewer system. Do we really know the impact on that? Will we be faced with additional costs because now we have the expansion needs that we have to do as a result of not only projecting those developments, but further. It is also my understanding that back when the sewer system was initially put in, there was a question about how ERUs were assigned. And I know that there was a lot of back and forth. People had multiple properties, they wanted to be treated as one, et cetera. It is my understanding, the research that I've done on many of these properties, including 7th Street, when the initial projections were made about future use and demands, many of those properties pull a 1 ERU number against that. Then all of a sudden, we start plugging in 40 units here, 10 units there, 12 units there, et cetera. Again, what kind of demand does that place on us and on that sewer system where we don't know? Now, I understand and know that during these kind of months, they're not even close. The demands don't even come close to our capabilities. But it's that period of time in the summer when everyone's back that we have to worry about and we need to know. I also know that the study that's being done, the sample time that's being done is being done in the last 30 days, which is at one of the lowest points of usage that we have. And so even when the study comes back, I ask you as a council with a fiduciary responsibility to say, is that the right way to sample? Is that the right way for us to determine, for you to determine what the demands need to be? And this is all online. You can find all this stuff and you can talk to the engineers. So I want you to think about that and have that contemplated, unless there's a real burning desire that we have to make a decision, we have to make it now. I've been trying to understand why it would hurt to slow it down and take a breath and see how things are developing, not only just here, but with Mavi. There's all kinds of projects, and would we be wise to watch and see how those things unfold and develop? We know we looked at the Mod Court situation, we know we had a plan there. And Nick's that idea, that plan was accretive. Whether you like it or not, I'm not here saying I support it, I'm just saying it was accretive because you could sell the property, you could tax people, there's no incentivizing, et cetera, on that piece of property, perhaps the most valuable piece of property we have as a village. So I'm trying to also want to understand and have you guys address for me why you would give away the most valuable asset that we have. Why would we cherish that and hold that, whether that's being green space or we use it for some other funding? I'm not saying don't do affordable housing. I'm just saying, are we making the best choices possible? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in person or in Zoom? Okay, if there's no other public comment, then we will move on to our liaison reports. First up is Waterfront Marina.
Yeah, I checked the last time for the suggestion box. There was one suggestion about lighting there. Other than that, we did have an incident done on it, but Jared's handling it, so. And that,
Any questions for Hugh on the marina? Okay, move on to infrastructure.
All the infrastructure stuff that's going on really is on the agenda already, so I feel like that can wait.
Okay. Planning Commission?
And Planning Commission, we have our meeting next week on Wednesday, and we have a draft of the first, I think it's like 5 chapters of the master plan, ready, presented, and we have worked on revising as a group more of it. It's just we don't have the draft ready to present, but definitely that's going to be on the agenda, as well as some of the additional zoning things that we are continuing to work on.
Okay, great. Anything for Laura? Any questions? Planning Commission? NLTUA, no real update. We have our bi-monthly meeting, not next Tuesday, but the Tuesday after, so. We'll get with the NLTUA clerk.
Do you want to clarify a little bit on the Jacob study, just because I think some of the public comment was, based on what I know, is slightly in error.
I mean,
As to why it was commissioned in the first place, and I know you know, I was there, I was on the board when it was commissioned, I believe. And why we did it and the data being used, maybe you could enlighten the public a little bit about it.
sure. So we are in the first phase of our 5-phase study. We had only agreed to do the first 3 phases. But the data collection will encompass multiple years of data from the sewer usage over the past, not just the last 30 days. Because again, it is important that during these high times that we do address whether or not we have the capacity to process the inflows there. it's being done because we have seen significant growth in the village in the last few years. While we may be, running tight on the debt payoff, we have seen a large number of connections come online compared to, that 2006 to 2015 time where we had everybody in town hooked up, but there wasn't a lot of new building going on. And it's also to, not just the capacity, but the design as well. There are some choke points at the facility where the inflows are coming in, where it's like a 3 or a 4-inch line and it's supposed to be 8 to handle it. So there is some situation going on there. So it would not be just to expand capacity, but also to improve what's actually going on at the treatment facility right now. There's been some issues with the sludge handling that this study is going to address. And so it's not just a growth and capacity study, that is part of the study, but some of the stuff that's included in the study is actually integral to what's actually going on at the treatment facility right now to address some of those concerns that we're having. So that's kind of where that's at, and I'd be happy to meet with you some other time, or you could attend our meeting, the NLTU meeting, we can talk about it. And I'm hoping that we're gonna have some of this information back, because it was supposed to be 6 to 8 weeks for the first phase.
Yeah.
And
Original, our reporting is scheduled for January, February.
okay, so, and when we do get that, all that information will be made to the public. It will be on the NLTO website.
I appreciate it. Some of the things I cited was from the engineering company, not,
Okay,
okay, so
Sure.
I'd like to compare.
okay, absolutely.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, so that will bring us to discussion items. Item A is the village-owned properties rubric, which the manager and the staff have put together and is in the Dropbox. And it looks like we've got 3 tiers. The first tier are the Children's Center, West Street Parcel, 7th Street. Tier 2, we've got Melfield Road, Wakazoo parking lot. 302 West Street, the wastewater treatment plant and the driving range. And then tier 3, we've got 3rd and Warren, the Village Hall and the Visitor Center. And I thought they did a nice job of highlighting some pros and cons for each. Based on the manager's meeting outlined here. Looks like we're looking for some discussion about the rubric, and would we like to move forward with any other site analysis for more detail on any of the other properties? And so I guess I'll open the floor up to any trustees that want to make comment on the rubric as it's been tiered by the staff.
I'll just make the comment that along with you, that they did a very good job of this. Details it quite well, so.
Yeah, I mean, to me, when we're looking at it, I think I agree that the Children's Center, I think, is a great option to look at. To me, I would want to see, like, what could we do there? I think that there's kind of out of the 2 projects we looked at last time, there is, the differing type of housing. And I think that I don't know that we've had a discussion or agreement as to, are we just looking for all types of housing, or do we feel that we need houses more than we need apartments, or vice versa? Because I think that that's something that's kind of an important question to know in terms of when you're looking at the sites, because like the Children's Center site, I think is probably good for a couple houses maybe, but I'm not sure that that would work for apartments. And it's in all likelihood different demographics that are looking for the different types of housing. And I don't know how we decide what it is that we're trying to, we know that we need housing. We know that we have a huge shortage. There's a shortage of people. There's a shortage, of year-round residents. But I don't know how to come to that consensus per se. But I think that when I look at it, I see different solutions for different ones. And I think if we're not going to be doing 6 projects all at the same time, it probably makes sense to try and figure out which are we trying to tackle or which is more important to us. Having houses for small families to move into and their starter homes, or apartments so that there is, you know, not necessarily maybe families, but maybe not, and people that need to just have rent because they're not necessarily in the market to buy a house yet or not able to financially. Even if it's an attainable house, right?
That's,
And then when you're looking at other sites, I feel like for me personally, I really can see the Wakazu parking lot. I know that other people don't, but I really think that there isn't a reason to get rid of the parking below. Like there are many apartment structures that can have parking still on the lower level as parking that's designed in the building, and then apartments above. But again, that would definitely be apartments. We're not going to see houses in that spot. And then some of the other spots, you know, I feel like the driving range, if you were going to look at that, even if it's not the driving range, if it's the part that's further east or whatever we're talking about, I feel like that probably could be either. It could be a cottage court. You could probably put apartments there if you want it, you know. So I feel like that's a question that I don't know the answer to. You know, I mean, I know that I would love to see more young families here, for the community and for the school. But I also definitely know that we have a shortage of workers, and that isn't always going to just be families that are coming in. I don't know. So that's a question that I have when I look at it and I'm trying to think about it.
Well, to your point, I think that, housing diversity is one of the things that we want to achieve with the housing that we're going towards, is that we do need apartments, we do need, you know, granny flats, we do need 2 and 3 bedroom. That was something that in the 2018 master plan, when there was the housing survey was done, it did identify types of units that we needed in numbers. It was broken down, and I don't have that on me right now, but it did list, like, you know, this is how many apartments we need, this is how many like single family homes, again, granny flats, smaller, like what we see in a cottage court, or something that's like 600 square feet. So, you know, when I look at the parcels that we do own of the tier 1, I don't really see many of those used for what I would call multi-family housing, which would be like the townhome apartments that Homestretch is looking at doing. And that's where that's going to be better suited, I think, on the township's property. But as the manager has discussed before or brought to our attention, that, you know, these parcels that we do own could be good for some of that infill stuff, which would lean more towards single family or 2 family homes, a duplex maybe, where it doesn't, you know, bring so many people to the area, but can accomplish that also, that missing middle, where it's like, we know we need the lowest barrier to entry of rent, but there are also people that are looking for homes that can, you know, qualify for, you know, maybe $400,000, but those homes just aren't available. And, you know, obviously the proposal that he has for Southern Street is next, but again, it's how do we address all the housing needs? You know, it's not just apartments and not just homes for buy. And there is going to be no one solution. I think that's clear. It's that, and back to Eric's point, you know, if we can work together with the township and with like, you know, new community vision, if we all have a stake in this, you know, it makes it all seem like we're here to play the part of helping addressing the housing issue, rather than saying, well, let's just let the township handle it, or let's just let new community vision do it. I mean, being an active participant in addressing the housing is important to me, as you know, someone from Northport that wants to see, yes, younger families move in, but I'd also like to see young couples who maybe aren't a family like we're thinking is going to throw 3 kids in the school right away. You know, people still need time to develop, and you know, I think, you know, just back to when I was able to buy a house on 5th Street in 2007 for $100,000. Those days are gone. But it doesn't mean that there's people out there that can't afford something in that like 250 to 350 range, where there's just no inventory. And that's what I see our sites leaning more towards too, if we're going to use them for housing.
Well, I definitely don't think that we should necessarily limit ourselves. I'm not saying that. I just know that we definitely can't do 6 projects at once right out of the gate. We can't do 3 projects right away, I don't think. So it's, to me, it was just like, how do we prioritize what should be the first one?
Hmm.
Versus not like, do we do it or don't we at all? It's which, how do we decide what is the best out of the choices and the types of housing, which is the first one to tackle? Because I feel like we do have sites that really could be looked at for like, there are different sites that can do the different things. And to everybody's point with working with the township, I mean, with what they're looking at, I feel like, you know, if they're doing that, then maybe we prioritize not that. You know,
Right.
like, don't pick the same style that they're doing, just because then that, not that we couldn't use twice as much of it, it's just if we prioritize a different style of housing first, because are they doing the townhouses? Well, I mean, they aren't doing anything, they're looking at, but I think it is the same 6-unit, there's just 2 of them. That they had proposed at 7th Street for us last time, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's the same template.
Yes, yeah, the
That,
same,
that concept plan, 6-unit structures.
yeah, and they have 2 of them on it, I think, okay. So,
I wanna mention that, I think it's worth looking at the children's center site in more detail. Because, I'd like to know what the details of the lease agreement that's in place. For exactly how much of the site could potentially be used under the terms of the lease agreement that's currently in place. Cause you've got about 100 feet, on the north side of this, of what's currently being used. And with the current zoning there, you're talking about potentially 2 buildable lots with 50-foot width each. And kind of look at that in more detail to see how that could lay out on the site. Look at the topography more closely, because that is a sloping area, although I think there's sufficient buildable space towards the front
Front,
along High Street. So, or, yeah, High Street. So I would like to just look at that in more detail. It doesn't mean that there's any plan to do something with it right now. But I think that's worthwhile effort just to see, you know, what those details show us. And we know we have that information regardless of how individual projects proceed. It's good to have that information in my view.
I agree, I mean, I definitely think that it would be good to look at that site so that we can see, just like we have at the others, I mean, the other 2 in that tier, we've already, you know, we are looking at, so to me, it makes sense to definitely look at the children's house too, if you guys feel that's the other best choice.
You've got 100 feet. And, you know, it appears to be 2 buildable areas there. The zoning would allow either single family structures or duplexes. I could imagine for single family structures that were split into 4 units, so you have 2 duplexes.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
I'm just concerned about the economies of scale argument that Larry Mobby in his presentation and Homestretch both said, that these small piecemeal projects, by definition, because they are small, make them more expensive to build. Then, like, he's got this, the reason he does these 6-unit townhomes things is because it's literally the most bang for the buck, and he's got a formula on how to build them at a price per square foot that can't be touched in anything else, especially what you're talking about. I think that's also why 7th Street got a little out over its skis with, you know, we wanted to look at some options, and then all of a sudden there were all these 6-unit townhomes, and it really, I don't blame anybody for being shocked, you know, when they saw that. That's like a little bigger than I think everybody had in mind. And, or a lot bigger than anybody had in mind. And, then when it's explained, it's like, well, this is the only way we can do it is big. And so that gave me some pause, like, you know, personally. That's just my comments. If you're gonna do them like up at the children's house, you know, if they're gonna be that small, it might not pencil out. The other thing that I wanted to ask, I guess this would be the time, and I'm kind of asking, putting this out to the public. I would like to hear from people from the public who would have an argument against the village putting the West Street property on the market, because right now, I mean, we've had it forever. I have only lived in Northport 18 years, so I know I'm a newcomer and a carpetbagger. But, I can't, since it's pretty much been eliminated as a use for affordable housing because of the topography. But somebody else would probably like to buy it and build two custom homes there, which would be 2 sewer hookups and an increase to the tax rolls. And those people would add to the economy, those families. So I can't think of a reason not to sell them. But if somebody does, I don't want to make a mistake, because once they're sold, they're sold. And that's a heavy responsibility on my shoulders, being a member of this council that voted to sell something, and then, you know, you find out, well, we shouldn't have done that. I would like to hear from the public if anybody has reason not to. And obviously, this is gonna be something that we will not be taking action on today or next month meeting or the meeting after that, but I really think we should be strongly looking at that, and I'm putting it out there to the public, please. Come to Jared if you don't want to talk to me, and I don't blame you. But if you have a reason we shouldn't sell that, I want to hear those arguments. Why, and if we can't come up with any reason not to sell it, let's sell it. And because I see it benefiting the village to get rid of that. I'm not gonna talk about 7th Street because we're not on that topic now, so I yield.
I definitely agree with you, Will, as far as, I think we as a council should take it off the table as far as affordable housing.
Yeah, I don't even know why we're still talking about it. Larry said it can't be done. So what are we gonna do with it? I
Well,
mean,
Larry's only one developer, so I don't think that that necessarily like cinches the deal, but I also don't disagree at all. That if it is more valuable to sell it so that money can then be invested elsewhere, still potentially for attainable housing, like, but then there's definitely benefit to considering that for sure. Would it only be able to be 2, or because it's platted as 6, could it be split more? What is it?
There's
What's the width? I
There were
don't-
6 platted lots. I don't remember
Oh.
off the top of my head. There are
'Cause
6
it's-
platted lots.
Okay,
it's
well,
more. I think
don't-
it's more than.
I mean, it would have to be appraised, probably,
Yeah.
you know, surveyed again, all that stuff. When a government entity goes to sell property, there's a lot of hoops we have to jump through. Since it's not a park, we don't have to have a public hearing. Although this is one case where I would love to have a public hearing, because I want to hear from anybody who thinks it's a bad idea. Because I can't see about it. I don't see it as bad. I can't think of an argument against it, but if somebody has one, I want to hear it. So in lieu of a public hearing, I'd like to ask the public for some discourse.
I have a question for Laura. So in tier 2, I see that it says there's 2 properties that could be built on wetlands, but from my understanding, we would need authorization from the federal and state government because it goes against the Clean Air and Water Act and also Eagle. And would that be more feasible than the 3rd Street Warren unit that's just not under current zoning?
I don't know the answer. I mean, there's many, having to get an Eagle permit for building in Northport is extremely common. Because if you're within 500 feet of Lake Michigan, if you're within 300 feet of a wetland, of the creek, you know, all these different things. You have to get an Eagle permit, and usually it doesn't stop you from building. I mean, I don't know that I ever have heard of a project that was completely stopped. It's just that you then have additional expenses potentially in what they want you to do to be able to build there. So I think that's why they're on there still, because you could build, but then when we have the more expanded rubric, which is still available, like that's still out there, it's just, this is showing pros and cons versus all those facts. But like, that's why that's on there, that you would have to get the Eagle permit, because that starts adding expense.
Okay.
You know, so like, it's not that you can't do it, it's just you might have to do, I mean, you're for sure gonna have to do silt fence, you might have to do special things, you can't put dirt here, you know, different things.
And would we need a permit at the federal level from the Army Corps of Engineers?
That's when you're within 500 feet from the water.
Okay.
Yeah, you wouldn't get it there, but I just wanted to add to that. We use the National Wetlands Inventory, that's the NWI on the rubric, as a baseline to determine, is there likely the presence of a wetland there? And there are many properties where you'll see a National Wetlands Inventory designation for a wetland, but it's on, the way that they make that determination is on a fairly broad scale. And it can be where smaller sections may or may not actually have wetland conditions on the site. The data is not always as current as what, is actually on site. So you'll see that there's a National Wetlands Inventory designation, but that doesn't necessarily mean that those wetland conditions are there or would be determined wetlands by people.
Yeah.
So that's why you go through and do a more detailed delineation. This has come up many times, like with the 7th Street property, the rezoning that was in motion earlier
On
this year
Fleece.
from Fleece Road. So you'll see on the NWI map, wetland, like on this property on Melville Road, but you really need to look at it more closely to make sure. And it could be that there are small portions of the site, for example, that could be built. Although, that's questionable. And I think some of these on the tier 2 and tier 3, you can argue them either way. I can see some of these, maybe you could switch them to a tier 3 and maybe the tier 3 to a tier 2. It kind of depends on what you're looking at, what your goal is, how much you consider a wetland an impediment or not an impediment. The size of the site, for example, like 2,500 square foot site that could be buildable, especially when you look at the surrounding conditions right up here on the corner. That's the 3rd Warren. But that's also a very challenging site, so it seems like it would be better to just push that off and consider that tier 3 because it has multiple challenges.
Yeah.
But these are somewhat interchangeable, so it's difficult to create a really black and white line.
And to your point, I do actually, I mean, the 3rd and Warren was one of the sites that I did like for housing as an option. The issue is that it's non-conforming. And so then that brings in a whole bunch of additional zoning and things to consider, because it's only 50 by 50. And so that just makes, and again, it's not impossible, but then there's more steps involved in doing it. And it's so small. So the amount of housing that we would get out of it, like, again, like analyzing what type of housing do we want and how much do we get for it, right? Like, I mean, if we're not getting a lot for it, is it worth the amount of effort to try and make housing fit there? And maybe it is, but I agree that it's lower down because it's just more challenging to figure out what fits there.
Thank you.
Any other discussion on the rubric? No? Okay, so I mean, do we want to have the manager take a closer look at the children's center parcel based on the discussion we've had today?
I would love that. I think that that's a great idea.
Okay,
Sorry. I also would really like to get with Jared and just show you what I can see as an option on the Wakazu lot, because I wish I could have done it to have today, but I didn't have time. But just so that I can explain it better, I would like to do that.
okay. So we'll have the manager take a closer look at the children's center property. That could be done, and we can talk about it at our next work session after you've had a couple weeks to, see what's there and.
Sorry, I have another question. Is there anything we should do on West Street to pursue, or should we wait to get feedback? On the West Street?
I don't think we're in any huge hurry.
I don't either.
I
Just-
definitely think we need feedback on it.
We don't need to take any action today.
Well, not action. I just meant, do we want the staff to do anything?
Nah.
Hopefully I'll get quoted in the paper and so people will come forward. Say we shouldn't sell it because of this and this and this, and if they don't.
But I think it's a noteworthy option that you brought up at the last meeting and reiterating here the reasons why selling it
Yeah,
could
I think we should sell it.
make sense.
but I don't wanna be wrong.
Sure. Okay, all right, we'll move on after that discussion to the 7th Street property future use. The manager put together a future use proposal that is in the Dropbox. I hope everyone's had a chance to look at it. Jared, do you wanna give us just a quick,
Sure. Yeah, let me just say a couple things. It's really tough to come into this with all the history here at the site and then just kind of take that on and be like, hey, how can I come up with a proposal that I know no matter what I do for this site, there's gonna be some criticism, there's gonna be some support. It's a difficult task, but and I also didn't want to do it just myself in isolation. Joni and I worked on it together. I reviewed it with Chris, we took a look at it, just had some discussion about what makes sense there. I've done a lot of work on it, including with the pro forma that you're not gonna see on the one page. I put it together as one page because I wanted it to be something that you could easily pick up and read quickly. It doesn't have every detail, it doesn't have every permit that you would need to move forward with it. But what I wanted to do is lay out the outline of a concept and then also explain what you could actually do in terms of steps to start moving this forward. So we're not having the same discussion over and over, but there's actually steps that in some cases would be irreversible, or more or less like designating a park is very difficult to reverse that outside of a referendum. So, you know, that was my goal with it. There's a lot more to the pro forma specifically that you're not gonna see on the page, but I did a lot of work trying to find a concept that would be viable, that would achieve attainable housing, but not necessarily in the way that you might think of for workforce housing, which is often 80% or 60% or below for area median income. Where this project is more about identifying and meeting a gap in the for sale market. It's not eligible for a pilot or for the attainable housing facilities exemption, but I think it meets a very clear need in the community for a type of housing that's not currently available. And yet it would also, I think, fit in well with the fabric of the community in that area. Single family detached housing that's using a minimal amount of space and it's retaining significant open space with passive recreation. Doesn't have to, but this is an option. And I don't suggest this is the only option. As I said, there are many ways that you can move forward with this. This is an idea. There's no decision being made today, but it's an idea that we can hopefully, you know, spur some discussion. Maybe say this is not a good idea, you want to move in a different direction, you don't want to do anything. So this is just one idea, I'm not suggesting it's the whole way.
Well,
So this, the landscape keeps evolving on all this, in terms of what we're doing and what the township is doing. And, you know, I mean, I'm not, the public comment from my friend Eric Poets, isn't 100, he's not wrong. My opinion has changed. I wouldn't say it's a 180, but it has evolved as, the situation has evolved. And in terms of, I still am in favor of the Buster Dame swap. It's too late. That has probably expired and that's not gonna happen. I personally, I still think that's the best option, but that's a township issue. It's not a village issue. The land swap that would have protected 7th Street forever, that I was very much in favor of, isn't gonna happen because the township they dropped the ball. That's in the past. What they're doing now that I didn't know about when they made comments a month ago is it looks like they're getting serious about the recycle center. That's great. And if they're gonna pass a pilot ordinance, which is gonna be critical to that, they're gonna get some resistance on that, I think, from the township. But if they have the political will to do it, all for it. I applaud them. And that takes the pressure off of Buster Dame and it takes pressure off of us on 7th Street somewhat. What I am, and maybe I'm slow on the uptake, I'm just, you know, but what Jared's nice work that he did is offering something that the recycle center doesn't offer. So the recycle center would be bargain basement, you know, I don't want to say cardboard, but you know, I mean, the least expensive way to manufacture the most shelter space for the least amount of money. And what you're describing, a cottage court in a retail sort of affordable range, which is going to be aesthetically totally different than what Homestretch had proposed for that site, which shocked everybody and it shocked me. And I don't think any, you know, given if the township goes through with what they're going to do, no reason for us to do anything like that on 7th Street. What you proposed on 7th Street, I think, is an idea that we can, you know, I don't, like other people have said, there's no reason to rush into it. There's no, you know, but I think it's an idea that should be tossed about. Maybe eventually we'll get some drawings. I think if it comes out looking the way I think it can look, and it can be a lot lower impact than what was proposed by Homestretch, both to the surrounding residents, And to traffic and aesthetically, it wouldn't be as shocking. An industrial sort of looking building in, you know, one of the prettiest parts of town, honestly. I think let it cook, let it gel, let it, and see it, maybe we evaluate need, we'll see what they do with New Community Vision. I mean, according to New Community Vision, their studies say that we cannot build enough affordable or attainable housing, that like the need is infinite. I wonder about that, but that's what their studies say. I think I would hate to see people build too much of this and we have empty units. I mean, and then we'd have egg on our face. So I think, as I said last time, slow the roll, but I do like the way this is evolving. And the important thing is to do it in a manner, it's a balance between economies of scale, what can be done to keep it within a certain price range, which is what you're talking about, something completely different than what has been discussed before. And I kind of like where you're going. It's a non-existent inventory in the market right now. It's a gap. It's not a pilot, you know, wouldn't qualify for pilot. That's important to a lot of people. They would be paying full taxes. They'd be paying full sewer hookups. That this matters to people that are concerned about this, and it would look okay. I mean, it might really be nice. Right now, that is landfill hard scrabble. It is not an attractive piece of land the way it is now. I mean, we could definitely do better. And so I think an attractive cottage court there is something that people maybe should wrap their heads around and slowly maybe think about. Maybe this isn't as bad as they think it's going to be. It's not going to be Cabrini Green in Chicago. It's something that you know might actually make the neighborhood look nice, and it might be an improvement. But like everybody says, we're not in a rush. So let's hear from people. Let's think about it, and I say keep the process going, but at a moderate pace. And it's something that maybe we don't do in the end. You know, maybe the need isn't there. But I think what you've done, the work you've done has been outstanding, and I would like to see more visualization of it. And I think the more we do that, and the more outreach we have, and more communication, you've done an excellent job talking to the people down there. The more communication we have, the better. And I don't see this as a bad project. The home stretch thing, I would have had a hard time with that. And the only way I would have voted for it is if the township dropped the ball completely. But you know, I feel like we have to do something. But if they don't, but since they look like they are, and New Community Vision is going to do something, this is a great filler. So I've talked longer than I should have for it, everybody.
My problem with what the cottage court is the fact, when I was on the planning commission.
Yeah.
Across the street, they were developing 6 units, they only developed 2, that was it.
We're supposed to be 9. Yeah. I know, we're all disappointed in that.
Yeah.
But that's a different kind of developer, I think, and we've learned from that we wouldn't legally allow ourselves to be we would contractually assure ourselves that wouldn't happen again. Nobody's happy about what happened on Thunder Road.
Yeah.
I think it's so important to have a development agreement.
Yes. We didn't have one, the village had never done anything like that before, we didn't have any experience, we didn't have a professional planner like you running the business.
Thank you.
And and no offense to Greg King or whoever was running it then, but we just didn't know what we were doing. And the council, I wasn't on the council then, but they were completely inexperienced. We are no longer inexperienced, we have learned. So I think we can do this right if we take our time. And communication, transparency, meeting with people, and we have to do a very good job and have guarantees that it won't be another Thunder Road or something worse. So.
Any question, I don't know who would know, but in light of the fact that the pilot program can't be applied to the 7th Street property, does that mean that because the margins are so thin that like only having 2 units built would not be an attractive offer to a developer? Like it has to be either 4 to 6 or not at all.
It's so much of it depends on the market, and this is kind of to Laura's points earlier. I think those are really critical points about what's your target market and what kind of units are you looking at. And absolutely, the economies of scale are so important when you're looking at rental housing, for example, that is going to be attainable. for people who are making 60 or 80% of area median income, you have to do quite a few units. You have to. You can't come in and do 2 or 4 units and expect it to pencil out. It's just not gonna happen. You're gonna have to do at least like John Simpson was talking about, where you have 12 plus units on a site. Plus, you're gonna have to have a number of subsidies. You're gonna have to dedicate the site. You're gonna have to have a pilot or a attainable housing facilities exemption and a brownfield redevelopment plan. It's gonna take multiple levels of subsidies to get to the point where you can bring those rents down. So it's not that 7th Street, it could be a project that utilizes a pilot. That could be the case. But the pilot is only for rental occupied housing, same with the attainable housing facilities exemption. And in order to, because of construction costs, because of site acquisition costs and so forth, all the costs of construction, in order to make rental housing that's affordable, that's truly workforce housing, you have to have a large number of units, right? That's what I'm saying, like it's 12. I'm just using that as a general number, but you're kind of starting there. That's why John Simpson is starting there when he's looking at the concept plan. Because you can't really even make it break even if you're doing less than 12, even using all the incentives. Does that? I
Yeah,
hope
no,
that
yeah,
answers the
absolutely. I
question.
mean, is there like any other like properties in the village that has that capacity?
I think we've been through that with the rubric. I think the answer is no.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
answer, in terms of village owned
Yeah, village.
properties, the
We're all talking
answer,
village.
I think, is definitely no.
And the township doesn't have a pilot ordinance yet, but they're gonna need one if they're gonna move forward.
But there are privately held properties that do have the potential to allow for that kind of
Okay.
development. There are privately
Yeah,
held
that's true.
properties, but that's outside of the council's direct control.
Yeah, go ahead.
So one of the things that you touched on is something that I agree with, which is that I don't think it's attractive right now, 7th Street. The hardscrabble area is not attractive. And I still would really like to see what could we do that isn't housing, but that could make that a better site. Because that was the entire, the 2 projects, the 2 reports that we said, let's go with these 2 plans and look into these 2 plans. One of them was to leave it as park and either just renaturalize, still have boat parking, but put landscaping in front, so it's hidden, put an actual park there, put just trail, I mean, all of those things were outlined in that report, and then we still haven't looked at any of those. And to me, I still would like to see those as well. I mean, that's the plan I was in favor of to begin with. I just didn't, that wasn't the majority, but I still believe that it would be nice to see what would it look like if we just did that?
Just to clarify a little bit on the history of, because I keep hearing with, an email sending public comments that, oh, I thought this was decided years ago that what was decided was we were going to protect the wooded area, and that was set in stone. We always left open, this council always left open what to do with that 1.2 acres that is, I think, on landfill. I swear to God, that has been filled. It's way higher than anything else around. It's not natural. And it probably won't support trees very well. That soil conditions not amenable to returning it to a forest. In my opinion, I'm not a forester, but I do have a biology degree and I don't see trees growing there very well without serious irrigation, etc. We did leave it open as to one of the things that we said back then, when it was decided, we always left it open to the idea of putting affordable housing there. It was never decided not to do that on the 1.2 acres that are filled. So just clarify history. I was here, I voted for it. I remember quite clearly, we never guaranteed what we were going to do with it. We did want to entertain other ideas. I like what Laura's saying. If we don't end up doing housing there, we could do something to beautify the spot or make it more publicly an asset for the public, although we have so much parkland already, and the cost to maintain parks we've discussed is a huge part of our budget, and the last thing we need is something that's going to cause more work for the DPW. So I haven't come up with any great ideas on what to do with that space, but it is kind of a shame to just leave it the way it is. I mean, there's 2 huge piles of black dirt and a bunch of boat trailers, which could easily go somewhere else. So, and it's nothing to drive by and say, oh, isn't that pretty? It certainly isn't. I'd almost rather have some nice cottages there or anything than what what it's doing now is not helping anybody.
I also did want to add that I also am hugely in favor of designating it as parkland. Either the section or depending on what happens, I mean, I am not opposed to the whole thing, but the wooded part, absolutely. I've wanted that since we finished the report. It's like all of
That's-
planning.
that's
So
a
I
deal.
think whatever the steps are to do that, I would love to hear about it, right? Like I've wanted to hear about it. So I just don't know what's involved in
Yeah.
doing it.
So in Jared and I's discussion, when we met to look over this plan, one of the things we did talk about was in the action steps. You know, number one would be to split the parcel into two sections. And that's something this council could do. Start doing now, split them into the two sections, dedicate that 4 point whatever acres into parkland now, so that's off the table.
That's fine with me.
That's something that it's even, no matter how we progress, whether we decide to beautify the 1.2 or use it for housing, that the community would know that 4+ acres of wooded area is already protected under park. And that would maybe help.
I
bring
don't
the-
think it's gonna hurt.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, it's just ease some minds out there that we're gonna all of a sudden decide to develop these extra 4 acres and, you know, clear cut all the trees, that we've already taken the steps to put it in park designation. And that way it would stay a park, it would stay wooded. You know, that doesn't mean we can't make improvements to it. Like outlined with some trails or benches, it could stay. We could do nothing, but having a piece of public land that is inaccessible to the public, also, I don't think actually meets the idea of having it as a public park. So having some type of public use in there, I think is important. For the people in the neighborhood that talk about walking on, you know, the road and it's dangerous, that would provide an area to walk in the nature, to sit. For the people that may live on 7th Street. But that's something we could do as we progress with looking at what I'll call our options there. I don't think, you know, this council hasn't made a decision to put housing there. We also haven't made a decision to put it back. Exactly. And so that's what we're doing is, if March of 2024 is the date that people are quoting. So that's a year and a half ago. So we have really sort of dragged our knuckles a little bit on this. You know, that we're here 16 months later, kind of talking about housing on that site.
We've had a lot to do.
That's what I mean, but it doesn't, the idea that we're rushing it. Is
No, we're not.
what we're doing is it's now a part of our conversation. And the public is involved. The council is, as Will stated last time, we are hearing the concerns there. But I think we owe it to the community to at least give some type of housing on that property a fair loan. You know, whether anything comes of it or nothing, we do owe it to the community to at least exercise it as an option. But I am all in favor of the land division, you know, separating the 1.2 acres off from the 4+ acres of wooded land, 4.8, and designating that as parkland. And I think that that's something the manager could do and guide us through, and that could be something we do ASAP.
Yeah, we could do a
I
resolution
think
today
we
to
got a
correct.
general consensus on
Yeah,
that whole project, so.
agreed.
Would you like a resolution for action
Yes,
at the
Yes.
next meeting to that effect?
I'm not gonna be at the next meeting, but I think it's good.
Yes,
I think
We
so,
can
yes,
definitely do that.
yes.
We'll schedule that for the next meeting.
4.8.
And but you're familiar with this process. Land Division Committee will need to review it. The village council reviews it also for a boundary adjustment. So this would create 2 new parcels.
Yeah.
And then, once that's done, then you can designate one of the parcels, the northern portion as park. Which would be separate action. So that would be the process for doing that. That could probably be within the next couple months, but starting with a resolution. Next meeting.
Would be great.
Any other discussion on the proposal for future use on 7th Street? And I should also note, that our manager is doing a great job of working with Housing North, and he's actually gonna be a panel speaker at the Housing Summit here on October 28th or 29th.
Yeah.
You, the East Bay Township Supervisor, and Josh Mills from Frankfurt are the three panelists on small town, big impact, I think is the panel.
I think it'll be a good way to network too.
And that's what I was alluding to, is that, you know, we, right now, we know Homestretch and we know Peninsula Housing. That doesn't mean that they're the only people out there that could or would look at building something. And Jared, I think, is gonna do a great job of finding those people. That's just my take, but I feel like you've done a good job, you know, incorporating yourself with the housing, with Yarrow and everybody, and I think that, you know, it's, if they're out there, you're gonna find them. So,
Don't speak too loudly.
Yeah.
More money.
yeah. So if there's no other discussion on the proposal for the future Lewis and Seventh Street, we can move on to capital projects. Is that okay with everybody?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, C, capital projects, again. Wasn't there something in the packet about this?
in the
Oh,
summary.
it's in the
Yeah.
summary, gotcha, okay. So, Laura, do you wanna, start off or Jared, I mean,
I would love to hear Laura's take on this. You've been working on this for a long time, and a lot of what I'm working on with Chris Holden is based on discussions we've had, projects. But, you know, I wanted to make sure that we're, like we talked about before, that I was providing an update on what we're doing right now. We plan for 26, and then how that'll tie into what we do going into next budget year. And the planning commission working on a capital improvement plan, which they're charged to do by the Planning and Zoning Enabling Act. But then, you know, there's kind of two parts to that, when the planning commission is charged with putting that together, but then that's also something that I plan on incorporating into the budget moving forward. But that's how I've broken it down, is what we're doing now, and then what we'll incorporate moving forward.
Yeah, and what we're doing now, you know, he outlined it all here. It's stuff that we have talked about before. There's the water line replacement on Fifth Street, which is something that has been needed, talked about for the 2 years, at least 2 years. As well as adding hydrants, because there's a lack of that, and cost effectiveness is good to tie in hydrants to water main replacements. Because they're already digging everything and doing everything, so that's the best time, DPW says, to get those hydrants in. So that one is underway, and they've been working on pricing and all of those aspects. And for those that don't know, that one is being replaced because it's smaller than it's supposed to be. So that's an issue moving forward, both with the state, both if there's problems, I mean, just a plethora of reasons why that needs to be upsized to the appropriate size. Then there is almost certainly a water leak in front of Faro in the water line there. And so that's something that now they're looking at spraying. Is that correct from what you've written?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And for people that want to look at that, if you look at the trees, you can see that that one is much, much, much bigger than the rest, and they were all planted at the exact same time. So, and the sidewalk there is really lifted every season. He has to deal with it because the tree is growing so quickly. And then the Marina water filling station was something they had been thinking they would get done this season. But the more they looked into it, to get the nicer units that have both the water filling, which is what we've had a lot of public request for, down there, because all there is one drinking fountain outside the bathrooms that you can't fit a water bottle under. And then having a drinking fountain also though, and then potentially adding one for pets, like for dogs down at the bottom, just so the water can collect there.
Comment on the pet one, because the lake is right there, and my dogs prefer lake water, and to add $3,000 to this thing to fill a dog bowl is like, that is why people hate government. I mean, seriously, that just makes no sense to me.
They're pretty common. If you go around to other cities.
Yeah, but they don't have a lake right there, 50 feet away, you know, you can walk your dog over the boat ramp.
It's not that far out. that you would have. But, you know, I would suggest looking at it, this is how I look at it, in terms of the overall cost of the project,
Yeah.
right? Because when we first started looking at it, I came here, we talked about it, and we talked about a $5,000 project. We use a lot of DPW labor, maybe bring in Cal or somebody to do a little bit of excavation. But then the scope expands and I need to know how big or little you wanna make this project, because we could use a filling station at the marina, we could use another filling station to replace the water fountain that doesn't work well. So do we wanna take on all three of those, just one, should it be really small scale like I initially presented it, or expand the scale? And for me, if it's a couple $1,000s for, you know, this or that, in the scope, relative to a $20,000 or $30,000 project, you see kind of where how I'm looking at that. I need to know more about like what scope this should be.
Well, anyway, I interrupted you, so.
No, you're fine.
I just had a comment on the dog bowl.
Yeah, and I don't particularly have a strong opinion about the dog bowl part. I really just do want to see a filling station down there, ideally on the lot that's by the farmer's market, since that's the main people who are asking to have water available there. And then just public use. We have music in the park. I mean, there's just so many events that are happening there. So it just really makes sense to me. And I think if it's just a filling station, because that saves a ton of money, I would be fine with that. But I do think it kind of makes sense to have both the drinking fountain and the water filling in the one unit, and if we're talking about fix them, where in the marina, is there a location that they want one? Like if we're doing more than one, is that what you're
Yeah,
asking?
Yeah,
Or,
there's two. Pretty sure there's one, right now there's a water fountain at the.
there's
boat
one at the
house.
bathrooms.
At the boathouse.
Is there one at the boathouse? I don't know.
I can't remember whether there is or there isn't, but that's one of the things that Bill brought to my attention.
Okay.
Is that
Yeah.
there have been comments made about wanting a filling station.
Filling station, yeah, and the reason isn't just, I think, because people want a filling station, which is just like logical. I think it's also because the drinking fountains we have, you can't get a water bottle under them and they're metal, and so like then you're just left with. Like you can fill it with spoon or something, I don't know, but it just doesn't really work.
So that's what I need some direction on. Do we just want to do a filling station as initially proposed? Should it include a water fountain as well? Do you want to give not to exceed amount and let us come back with an estimate or a proposal that fits within that?
I would be in favor of a water fountain / filling. If we're gonna build one, let's do one of the new ones that does the water bottles by the farmer's market. Other than that, I'd wait till the other ones are broken. I mean, I don't see a problem just tilting your bottle a little bit to fill it. It is possible you don't have to use a spoon. Seriously, I mean, yes, over evolving times, yeah, the new water fountains all have that water bottle filling amenity, but is it really necessary to spend that kind of money just because you tilt your bottle 45 degrees and maybe not get it all the way full? You can fill a water bottle from those little fountains, and if it isn't broken, let's wait till they break, and then when they do break, replace them with nice ones. But if they're not broken, I don't see a reason to replace them. We don't have one at the farmer's market. Yes, I'm in favor of putting one there, and that's it. I'm against anything else.
I agree, I don't have a problem with waiting until they break, but like I said, I want the one. I think that it would be nice to have the one, and there was public feedback that started that question or request of infrastructure, so.
If we just do the one by the,
Farmers market.
we have an estimate, $10,000?
I would say yes, under 10, we could do a filling station, and that it would include a water fountain filling station combo for 10 or less.
I say, let's look at that.
Yeah, because we already make a motion to?
We did, but it was only for
Yeah,
$5,000.
which is 5.
Okay,
And then once he did more research, discovered that that does not cover the whole cost.
okay, I'm just making, I
Just
just,
put that down on the agenda for next week.
Yeah.
Well, I wanna put together an actual, better numbers. I wanna get the quote
Solid
Cal,
numbers,
you know,
yeah.
whatever we're gonna use to excavate, and combine that with an actual.
So realistically, we're looking at a project that we'll be doing next spring instead of,
Yeah, it will be this year.
Yeah, okay, exactly.
farmer's market's done.
And so is music in the park.
Oh,
That's why we're basically just saying, okay, spring, we'll do these,
But it's good to keep working on it now, because then you can be ready and have everything ready to go, once
Exactly.
it's not winter, yeah.
And the action will come back to council for an approval, once I get those put together, once I get those figures put together. but at least I have some direction now, thank you,
Yeah,
and then I can. that'll-
what I was like, our original motion was just for the one, but the discussion was about maybe adding multiple. So I think just going with the one for now.
It's pretty, surprising to me that just adding the water fountain. Almost doubled the cost of the unit.
Hmm.
And it's tough to find one even that was 3,000, and it did not strike me as being good quality. The one that I saw, that was like 2,800. Not the best one out of the market.
And then there was, so that's the current stuff, and then there's the,
Yeah, and then there's all the capital improvement plans that, we've looked at those lists usually around budget time.
Are we supposed to rank these?
It's more just for me to present them, if you had projects that you wanna add, I wanna hear them, this needs to go to the planning commission. Like I said, per statute, they're charged with putting together the capital improvement plan. So that there's some more detailed work that I would expect them to get engaged in. So.
And a number of these projects already have planning commission reports that have been written for them in the past. It's just the projects haven't moved forward, so those have to be updated if we're looking at them. I mean, definitely in planning, when it comes to projects that have been reviewed there, which not all of them have, because so DPW, like infrastructure projects, aren't really something, they're on that list and they may be very important. For example, there's quite a few water mains besides the one that's being looked at that need to be replaced. Some of them going back to 1931 and have had issues. So to me, those are very important and haven't previously, like planning commission has never scored those projects. Because it just happened, like there's the DPW infrastructure list, and then there's ones that planning have pulled together from committee referrals and things like that. And so to me, the water mains are really, really high priority, just because leaving those is how we get leaks that then cost more to repair than if we had just addressed it in the first place, as well as there's 19 hydrants throughout town that are, they don't have parts that are replaceable. They're like extinct hydrants. And Chris and DPW have made clear multiple times that to do the hydrants is most cost effective if you're doing it in combination with a main. So to me, having them prioritize which water main project is the next most important from what they're working on now is a priority to me. And then the top rated project in planning commission for several years has been the sidewalks that are to go south of town from the school. We talked about it in infrastructure tons of times, and there was both that one, the Wakazu streetscape, and those sidewalks, which would probably need to have street redevelopment or design thought about, because right now the sidewalks aren't to ADA or even a normal width. They're less than 4 feet wide, and there isn't space on the property sides. So we're like, you can only make them the right width by going in, which means probably having to change the parking, because right now it's 2 parking and 2 lanes. And if you start making the parking smaller, cars won't fit there. And then there was also discussions in infrastructure for sidewalks that go north of town, where our sidewalks currently stop, but potentially not keeping them on Mill, but going back to Warren, I think, is what the discussion had been, or Ransom, yeah, and going up, because there's a sidewalk that when it does stop, that goes inward, and that you could go that way and then you wouldn't be on the main street, you're still going the same area. So anyway, to me, it's definitely water mains and sidewalks.
So, and I think that's what the planning commission, the next step for planning commission with the capital improvement plan is to. And with staff input, obviously, and this is like a back and forth, but we need to put numbers to these projects. We need to prioritize them and then also talk about the timing of them, right? So that's really, so let's look at a 5 or a 10-year window with a budget figure associated with it. And then that'll form the basis of how that's going to be prioritized and included in the capital improvement plan. There's a couple others too now that I'm thinking about it, and since I finished the memo, the well for the potable water system and the tank. There's a couple projects that we should add to the list, not necessarily something that needs to be done within the next couple of years, but long term, when we're doing this plan. We need to put a number to that and also consider it. So this list, you know, gets fairly long and we need to start putting some detail to it so that the planning commission can rank it. Create the plan, and then the council will have some involvement and input as we get into the budget process for exactly how that's going to be budgeted.
Yeah, I mean, in planning, we have, when it's been the planning list, we have scored them and put them in numerical order and prioritized them that way and budgeted some. It's that then we got Jim here and we weren't really, because DPW's infrastructure and asset review had never really, we haven't ever figured out, like, it hasn't been integrated together in terms of, like, planning doesn't feel comfortable scoring those projects because they don't understand them to the same degree. And so it's something we can talk about in planning, but like figuring out how do we score those when they're such different projects than, you know, putting in a playground, which was on the list, it got done, but I mean, like, when you're talking about a trail, you can definitely go through, or a community garden, and members on the planning commission are qualified to follow the rubric and score it, but when it comes to the water main, it's a lot harder for us to know what. Anyway, so it's just figuring out how do we, and we, that step hadn't gotten to, so it was like, okay, well, let's just at least combine the lists so that everything is there. And then, you know, for the budget, for people to see them all at once. But then still figuring out and refining how do we combine them into one plan is definitely a step that we want to do. It's just, what is the best way to do that?
So I'd like to do that over the next several months, going into the early part of 26, so that when we're doing budget workshops and getting ready for budget adoption in May, June. That it's there's a plan that's part of the budget.
Marina expansion.
Yeah, that's the biggest one on there.
Well, and that, I mean, that was on the CIP list too, always, and that's a very high score project too. Because of the fact that it brings in revenues once it's done.
And it probably has the biggest sources of potential grant funding.
Right.
So. It's a big project and it's a multi-year undertaking.
I keep hearing from people when we're gonna do it. It's probably because they're so far down the wait list for a slip.
Well, yeah, I mean, and that's what I hear is that if there was an expansion, that the slips would be filled immediately, basically.
Something to think about. That 10-year plan.
Yeah.
Okay, so anything else on capital projects? I mean, you can, you know, get with Jared. on your-
Well, and for public that's interested in hearing more about those, it sounds like coming to planning, but next week we aren't gonna be working on it yet because that agenda is already basically set, but to keep an eye on those agendas.
All right, brings us to item D, which is the Christmas tree lighting proposal. We got a proposal from Scott Kane to light the Christmas tree and remove the lights from the spring. Just over $8,600. Thought they did a great job last year. And I'd be happy to see them do it again. Is any other council discussion regarding that?
You're definitely right. I don't know how much longer the tree's gonna be there, but they do a beautiful job and they do it.
So I have a question. So usually lights have to get purchased. Does this include that? Because that's part of, or it doesn't include any new lights. This is just him using everything that we have currently. Anything that's broken will get replaced because it's not budgeted. Like what is, cause always when he's testing it, I mean, and when you guys, there's always
He's
stuff.
got some list
Yeah.
of some
Okay.
items that would be in addition to this.
So there would be additional cost,
Right.
but that's the actual lights themselves, and we would look at that another time, or it's
Right.
under the,
Maybe you
it's
don't
under the
just
amount.
Authorize it
Okay.
without that.
Couple thousand.
Yeah, I just wanna be sure, because I know that there's usually quite a bit that's broken that has to get replaced and wanna be sure that's being addressed. So,
Yeah.
okay,
Looking at adding some more ornaments to the tree.
Yeah, I thought the lighted ribbon that went around the tree last year was really
It's
cool.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cause
I
it was
love
that netting.
Yes, it looked good.
Um,
So does this need to be an action item for next week?
Yeah, as long as you're okay with it, we'll schedule it for action.
And he has his own insurance or he operates under ours? He has his own insurance.
all right, so we'll have this on action for next council meeting. All right, that brings us to the end of our discussion. So item 6 is gonna be second round of public comments. Again, members of the public will have 5 minutes to address the council. Just state your name and residence for the record. And with that, public comment is open. Yeah, go ahead.
Pam Stebbins, 214 East Fourth Street. I have a question more than a comment. When you were speaking about the projects that are going, the sidewalks and things that you've got, do you have any plans on sidewalks along Shawassee going south of town, right from your corner where you live, Chris, going south that way? Because I see a lot of people walking
They're all the way to the light.
Prairie
all the
one.
way to the light.
Yes, we can,
That's the top sidewalk project and going to the flashing light at 22 is the goal.
Thank you.
Thanks, Pam. Anyone else? Yeah, go ahead.
Brady Cook, 10414 North Shore Drive. I think for the first time in a while, I've actually found some common ground with Will. I gotta still go home and check that out. But the comment that Will made about the area, he said, you know, that's one of the prettiest areas in Northport. And it is. I mean, I'm blessed to be able to live in that area and see it. And one of the things that I'm hearing in these discussions is that there's a feeling, and this is my perception, so this is not an accusation, that we're so hell-bent on the idea we gotta have this, that are we really taking the time to listen to what some of your residents are saying that they want? And to Laura's credit, she said, I'd like to see a plan on a park. And there is a number of people who say, when you go by on any kind of day, particularly in the summer, et cetera, you have families walking up and down those streets. They're pushing babies around in carts. They're riding bikes. They're just enjoying the beauty of it all. That even carries down to the part where you transition into the gravel piece, which those people are fighting a battle right now, as you know, with street expansion. And their concerns are increased traffic. This is where we walk and go. And I just want to encourage you guys to don't forget about the constituents who have the opinion that it's not so bizarre to say we want to park for the whole thing. That's not so far-fetched. I agree with Will again. I found 2 common things, which is I'm not so sure that when everyone says we gotta have these, we don't have to look it up, we don't have to see the demand, we just know. I think he might be correct. I think sometimes we think that that's the case. But here we hear about a 70-unit program down in Suttons Bay. We hear about stuff south of town. We have no idea the impact that's gonna have on us. And are we gonna wake up one morning and have a nasty hangover because we were so busy going this way, we didn't look at what was coming from the sides? I want you guys to promise you will listen to the people that are living in this community about appreciating the beauty. It's a lot of reasons why people come here. It's a lot of reasons why they don't even live here, but I guarantee you they're walking up down those streets. So I don't think it's so far-fetched, and I would love to see a plan that shows that. And the last thing I'm going to make on this, I'm going to go back to the fiduciary. I don't want you guys to underestimate this report on usage. And where are we on this? I mean, I just heard, well, we could put in more slips, there's a demand. Well, we could build up here. It doesn't take long, and pretty soon those RUs blow up. I think we have to come from a position of knowledge to know what can we, cannot do, and don't let this sneak up on us like Thunder Road snuck up on us. I think we got to do our homework. And the homework also, as creative as that idea is about building those units, in the end, if you listen, it's not a lot different than subsidized housing that we have to donate, we have to give away land. And I look at it, these people look at it, some of the most valuable land we have, and we have to give it away. We have to donate, we don't get anything for it. At least if we're villagers and we say we want the peace and quiet, it's part of what we came here for, it's part of why we pay our taxes, we get something. But other than that, we have to give up the land. We have to subsidize other things to make it work. So I trust you guys. I believe you have the intellectual intelligence to challenge these things and look at them, but that's what we're asking for. And that's what we hope that you guys do. Okay, that's it.
Thank you. Anyone else in person or in Zoom? Yeah.
Vicky Slot, 10160 North Shore. I just want to say, I appreciate all the information online that I found with the committee for the reports you put in before in advance of the meeting that allows for the community input. It's really appreciated, along with the videotaping that we can, if we can't make them in person, we can see it after. And as Laura and I talked, I tried desperately to find documents and I look and look, but they're there. But anyway, that might be an area that I heard you're working on. I wondered, when we write letters, what's the process? Do we get answers back on our questions? So I didn't know whether, like at our school board, usually somebody responds. I didn't know what the process was here for that. Write a letter and ask questions. Is anybody usually respond or?
Sorry, I'll answer that comment. And council comment.
Any other public comment? Okay, if there's no other public comment, we'll move on to council comments. Go ahead,
Just-
Will.
So to answer your question, we don't have to, but we can.
Okay.
Occasionally, like I answered, Ms. Swanson's letter this morning,
Oh, okay.
directly, on my own, as she's somebody who, you know, I represent. So, my strong recommendation to everyone from the public, I mean, you can talk to individual council members, but you're gonna get a lot more information if you go to that guy right there. He's one of the most professional people I've ever met, and he knows what's going on. And I trust him to represent all of us when you come to with a question. I encourage anybody to go make an appointment with him and talk to this guy, because he's on top of everything. He's making our jobs really easy. So this is a good thing.
Laura?
I have a couple things. One, I just have a question for thought for people. When we were setting up the 2 meetings a month, we have one in the daytime, one at nighttime. We've had public comment, saying that they're not happy about that. I wonder, I don't feel like there was any specific reason why the work session was the daytime one and the regular meeting was the nighttime one. And because, as Susan said last meeting, the work session tends to have more discussion. I did wonder if other people maybe think we should consider making the work session one being the nighttime meeting and the regular meeting being in the daytime. Just a thought, if people want to consider that. And then the other thing I wanted to just announce that the walk and roll to school day is October 8th, which is next week at 7:30. If you meet at the marina, everybody's welcome. We have coffee and donuts, and then all the kids walk up. The Lions Club blocks the road. It's good, and it's part of the Safe Routes to School grant program that we are probably going to be applying for the sidewalks.
Can I respond to your first part?
Sure.
I really do like this new format, and I want to thank everybody who came today. It's new for a lot of people. I realize it's in the middle of the day, but we also have to recognize that Northport is almost 50% retired. So a lot of people can make these meetings and they are recorded. And I just feel, I know for me personally, the nighttime meetings by 8 or 8:30, all I want to do is get out of here. And I think I'm a lot more patient and productive during the day. I'm just speaking for myself. But I really like this new format where we have one semi-informal and then we vote at night when everyone can be there.
You're saying you like that 19-minute meeting at night?
I did.
Any other council comment? Okay, I don't have any, so at this time, 3:34, I'll need a motion to adjourn. Support?
Or
Okay, thank you. We're adjourned.